What'd you do?
I bypassed the compressor.
I feel something. Yes, I feel it.
That's the force.
Really?
Wow, it must be really strong
Oh,
with
I've
you.
never felt any... Whoa! I like this!
All the Sith.
And I...
And all the Jedi.
Race
Solo.
Race Star Wars.
Star Wars Celebration used to be fun. Now it's just kind of sad and it's a shell of what it used to be, much like the IP it represents, as Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy on Daisy Ridley's new Rey film, Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2, and Rian Johnson's Star Wars future. Well, let's see. I can speak on behalf of a little of that right now. Daisy Ridley's new Rey film. Well, the opening shows why that shouldn't happen. I mean, those are just some of the cringeworthy scenes that involve that character who was so poorly written and such a Kathleen Kennedy, wish list self-insert that we just soundly rejected it. And the action figures for those are still on the shelf from The Last Jedi. And there was nothing for The Rise of Skywalker as far as toys. If you want to look at what toys are where, go over to my good friends over at the World Class Bullshitters and check out Jeff's toy coverage over there of Star Wars and beyond, Marvel, and see this stuff is just sitting on shelves collecting dust in bargain stores. I have some. Next time I go down to the bargain store, I'll shoot a little short and we'll upload that and I'll show you just what I'm talking about as these characters sit and just take up shelf space. But Obi-Wan Season 2, I could only make it through a couple episodes of that. I made it up till the battle with Vader, and I was done at that point. And Rian Johnson's Star Wars future, well, you want to talk about a fruitless future, that's Rian Johnson in Star Wars. That trilogy is dead. It was never going to happen. And if they decided we're going to move forward with this thing, how bad does that make them look after all the fan backlash that Disney had with The Last Jedi being the pile of...
That is one big pile of shit.
After the Ahsoka panel at the Star Wars Celebration in London, Variety spoke with Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy about some of the future franchise installments. Kennedy was keen to talk about bringing back Daisy Ridley's Rey, because of course she was, for a new Star Wars film which was announced during an April 7th panel. It was pretty straightforward. It was a pretty straightforward phone call, she said. I started out by just saying, hey, I think we are getting near being ready. We've been talking a lot about what we're doing in the movie space, and I said, I think we're getting close to being ready. How would you like to go to Celebration? That was really the beginning of it. She was out of her mind excited. Well, Daisy Ridley, as I said many times on the record, seems like an absolute sweetheart. A just lovely, charming, fun woman who pretty much enjoys life. Now, that being said, any criticism I've ever levied has not been at her. It has been directed at the character. So I don't feel like I should have to pre-qualify the statements, but people take things out of context and they just look for sound bites. So there it is. And this character doesn't need to be brought back. I mean, The Rise of Skywalker pretty much summed up everything that was representative of that character on screen, which was garbage. Diminishing returns, action figures that didn't sell, and characters that nobody could relate to. Kennedy also offered an update on Lucasfilm's collaboration with Rian Johnson.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Who is potentially working on a new Star Wars trilogy. And here we go back to this. And Vanity Fair Variety, outlets like that, The Wrap, those are for Hollywood insiders. So they're speaking to the Hollywood, folks now, not you and I, because you and I know that this isn't happening. Ryan and I talk all the time, she said. He's unbelievably busy, so we're not actively involved in anything at the moment because he's doing another one of those Glass Onion movies and then God knows what else. But he really wants to step back into the space. It's a big commitment of time, so that's really on him. Coded language for we're not doing anything right now. Taika Waititi is also working on a standalone film in the Star Wars universe. Kennedy gave an update on that as well. If it's anything like Thor Love and Thunder, oh boy, I can't wait to watch this crash and burn as well. Taika is still working away, she said. He's writing the script himself. He doesn't really want to bring others into that process, and I don't blame him. He has a very, very unique voice. So we want to protect that, and that's what he's doing. But we're going to make that one day. No, they're not. That's not going to happen either. Kennedy also fielded an inquiry about potential second season of the series Obi-Wan Kenobi. Some fans have pushed for a follow-up adventure for Ewan McGregor's iconic Jedi. Where are these fans? Are these fans in the room with us right now? That is not in active development, she said.
Good.
But I never say never, because there's always the possibility.
Nope.
That show was so well received, and director Deborah Chow did such a spectacular job.
Liar!
Here we are back on Variety with another article. This came out this morning. Daisy Ridley's new Star Wars movie will find the Jedi in disarray 15 years after the rise of Skywalker. Luke Skywalker Force Ghost is to be determined. Yes, if we can drag that out one more time and parade it around for the audience to get some member berries. One of the biggest announcements to emerge out of Star Wars Celebration was the return of Daisy Ridley in the new movie that will follow the events of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, which concluded the most recent Skywalker trilogy in 2019. Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, Miss Marvel, is directing the still untitled Rey movie from a script by Stephen Knight of Peaky Blinders fame, which I've never seen. I've never seen Miss Marvel. Like I said, I've said many times about that show. I knew that wasn't made for me. I had no interest in watching it. Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy said at the fan convention that Ridley's new Star Wars movie will follow Rey as she builds a new Jedi Order, but the executive teased a bit more about the plot in an interview with IGN. Star Wars fans will pick up with Rey over a decade after the rise of Skywalker. Disney cannot forget that movie soon enough. That movie, it made $1 billion, but it was the lowest grossing film of the sequel trilogy, with the law of diminishing returns hitting Last Jedi and then Rise of Skywalker. Solo, of course, lost money. Rogue One was only saved by the reshoots at the end after Gareth Edwards had been removed from his own movie. Well, we're 15 years out from Rise of Skywalker, so we're post-war, post-First Order, and the Jedi are in disarray, Kennedy confirmed. There's a lot of discussion around who are the Jedi, what are they doing, what's the state of the galaxy.
What is it? What's going on? I heard a noise. Is somebody downstairs?
She's attempting to rebuild the Jedi Order based on the books, based on what she promised Luke, so that's what we're going to do.
Shite. Oh yes, that's shite.
So they're going to give Rey Luke's story. That's exactly what they're going to do. They are repurposing Luke Skywalker, and they are going to do, this is going to be a trilogy, and they're going to redo the entire the original trilogy again, because they failed with the sequel trilogy to redo it. So that's exactly what they're doing. With the benefit of hindsight, if you look back at Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, that retold the original, well, they tried to and failed because the continuity was so loose, the strings were so thin, the threads between them were just, yeah. You know, I mean, yes, there were obvious constants. Going from JJ to Ryan back to Jar Jar, it really, and the third movie was just a mess. Like, there was no saving that.
Well,
They're going to redo this. They're going to start over. It's going to be Rey, and they're giving her Luke's story. So this is funny because they dip into the EU only when they need it, but they threw that out, that Legends aren't canon, and blah, blah, blah. We all know the story. I believe it was 2014 that happened. So mental gymnastics over at Lucasfilm to justify their garbage tier storytelling under the leadership of Herr Kennedy. As for whether Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker could be involved in the film via flashbacks or as a Force ghost, Kennedy said, "I don't know if we'll spend a lot of time in flashbacks or on Force ghosts or things like that, but certainly the spirit of what represents to her is going to be significant." In an interview with Variety at Star Wars Celebration, Kennedy said Ridley was out of her mind excited to return to the franchise's Rey, as we talked about in the last article. Jon Favreau, who is leading the charge for Star Wars on Disney Plus, Jon Favreau, who is leading the charge for Star Wars on Disney Plus with such shows as The Mandalorian, also raved to Variety about Ridley's return. This is a canned boilerplate response by Favreau because he has to say these things. "It's just exciting," Favreau said. "I always find it really satisfying, encouraging when you have people who come through Star Wars come back to Star Wars. It shows you how strong that community is and how big of a bond you develop. For Daisy to come back and be part of where this is going, I'm excited to see what happens there." Not only will Ridley's movie mark the return of Rey, it will also make Obaid Chinoy the first woman and the first person of color to direct a Star Wars movie.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
It will also make Obaid Chinoy the first woman and the first person of color to direct a Star Wars movie. They act like that is a crowning achievement. They're like, oh, it's going to be great. Why? Well, she's a woman and she's a person of color. It's beyond criticism at this point. You just have to accept it.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next products.
Folks, I look at this one way. Star Wars is dead. All right? It is. It's dead. And it's not coming back. You know, even if Kathleen Kennedy were to be fired, you're going to meet the new boss worse than the old boss. Much the case of Bob Chapek, Bob Iger. You know, Iger obviously never really left. Still had an office there the whole time. It was sleight of hand. You know, don't look at who's behind the curtain. Star Wars is just bad. I mean, obviously, bringing back Rey is not a ringing endorsement for things to come, if that's where they're going with it. You know, one of the most unlikable characters, not because of the actress who portrays her, no, but because of the writing behind it. And I don't have any faith under Kathleen Kennedy that this will ever get better, but we should be talking about the Star Wars that does matter, which next month, May, is the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi that I saw in theaters, one of the first movies I can remember seeing in theaters. I was just over 3 years old, and that is something I will never, ever forget, much like the first time I watched professional wrestling. I am so excited. Hopefully I'll be able to get back because I know they're going to screen that in some theaters. I will absolutely go see The Return of the Jedi again on the big screen because that will be the last time I'll probably ever get to see good Star Wars on the big screen. So, folks, that's all I got for you. Let me know what you think. I know pretty much most of my audience at this point is checked out of Star Wars. They don't care anymore, but this is just, it's too big and too hilarious not to talk about, at least in a video. So do all the YouTube things, not just for me, but for all your other favorite YouTubers, as all these other fine creators appreciate it. Thank you to everybody at the channel, my editor, Goodstuff. That's it. I'm Etep from the Place to Be Reviews. I'll be back later, 8:30 Eastern, for Going in Raw with all the U's. If I don't see you, have a great day, a pleasant tomorrow, and I'll catch you on the next one.
It's better to burn out than to fade away. I could do this all.
This doesn't bode well. You're lying. I never hit you. You are tearing me apart, Lisa.
of good suffering.